Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second episode of The Corporate Comment, a podcast series by the Corporate Interface team of SIBM Pune. My name is Karthik Thakur, and I'll be your host for the show. Let's start talking all about sustainability and scaling it from principles to practice. In our previous episode, we had the privilege of hosting Mr. Pawan Lal, senior journalist and author of Flawed, The Rise and Fall of India's Diamond Mogul, Nirav Modi. For this particular podcast, I'm extremely excited to host a very special guest, Mr. Sameer Nayar. With an illustrious career spanning over 2 decades, Mr. Nayar is currently the Executive VP, Strategic Development of Oberoi Hotels and Resorts. He has headed global strategy, corporate development, real estate, and hospitality development at the Oberoi Group since 2016. He's an alumnus of University of Michigan and a chartered accountant. Mr. Nayar has held leadership roles at leading financial organizations like Societe Generale, HSBC, and JP Morgan. Mr. Nayar has rich experience in joint venture formation, minority buy-in, consortium negotiations, capital raising, and distressed acquisition situations. So we are really happy to have you here, sir. And I'm sure your diverse experience across sectors will be a great learning opportunity for our listeners today.
Thank you for a very kind introduction. I'm ready to take your questions and I look forward to an engaging session.
Absolutely, sir. We'll start with the first question, sir. Let's start with the why. Why is every company talking about sustainability these days?
It's very interesting you asked this question because, in our industry, in the travel trade and hospitality, we've been looking at sustainability in a very subtle way for a long time. But I think it's come much more to fore, and I would put it down to really our end users, our guests and travelers, who are becoming increasingly more aware of what they consume, how it is produced, and what that means for them and the rest of the society around them. So very simply put, sustainability to us is not just a buzzword or a green topic which has been in existence for the last few years, but as an industry, we and as a company in particular have been working hard on it, and we will talk in more detail on what sort of sustainable initiatives we've taken. But to the point you asked about what has caused, I think it's just the awareness. The transformation that has happened due to digital media, the transformation that has happened due to the internet has made it the access and transmission of information and opinions much easier, much more accessible. And the trends that start in one place to the other certainly go on very quickly.
Absolutely, sir. It was always about the triple bottom line. It wasn't just about the environment per se, but the change is magnified in the last 2 decades. And companies have been looking into this angle as well of sustainability.
That's right.
We know so that the Oberoi Group is committed to excellence. And since it's the hospitality industry, we see that it always has a key attention to detail. So what, according to you, are the key drivers to bring sustainability in the hospitality industry?
Very well. I think hospitality is a very special industry where, if you think of it, the world comes to you rather than where you reach out to the world. Because the kind of people that come and travel and stay at our hotel in India, and I just not say it for ourselves, but even for other chains anywhere, that the world comes to you and they bring with them that awareness. And that awareness and that need, that demand, certainly then gets, and we take our guest feedback very seriously. So as I was saying, sustainability is not just about saying a green buzz in environment or something, but I'll just talk about a few different things that the way we look at sustainability, whether it's the kind of resort we design in terms of number of rooms it has and the kind of practices that we put into it. The effort is always to be exclusive. We are not there to create massive properties, massive keys, number of keys, which is just increasing the footfall. We are always about more exclusive, smaller resorts. We are very focused on keeping the destination and not so that it's not run down by over tourism. The other part that we really focus on is on the local artisans. It's extremely important to preserve the culture. Now, it's not your sustainability in a typical word of initiatives and the green initiatives, but you must preserve the heritage of the place. Preserving local recipes, food, just to keep the local culture going. natural ingredients, organic produce, very important. Again, all of this has an indirect impact on how it is recycled and absorbed. And certainly, last but not the least, the most common, the impact of environment, which is using of green technology, less plastic, less color dyes, and so I think
Mhm.
collectively as a hospitality industry, we get to experiment, we get to put the narrative out there on what sustainability or what any of those agendas are, and it's largely driven by the nature of the industry where the world comes to you, and you've got to respond to everything that comes to you.
That's an entirely different perspective from how different businesses are run. So, wanted to understand, let's the government angle of it. What are the government frameworks that have aided the Oberoi Group and other organizations in the hospitality industry in the path of sustainability?
Well, I mean, I think there are a couple of different ways in which the government involved in the local governments, and I talk not just for our business in India, but even overseas. Some of the ways the government influences the policies when they ask you to hire more local people, and they ask you to promote local artisans, and they do so because it's part of the criteria for or the conditions for you to operate in that city or country. So we're very cognizant. We participate extensively with the governments in these policies and these sort of understanding how best we can cooperate with them.
Mhm.
The other ways that the government influences is through their financial commitments. So, what kind of
Mhm.
incentives they offer to you for example, energy usage. I'll give you a couple of examples. Our properties in Gurgaon, we've got two hotels, are entirely on solar power now. And it's
That's
our
amazing.
endeavor to build out solar power for our various properties in Rajasthan and thereafter in other parts of the country. And it's through working with the government that we've been able to, sort of help them realize their ambition and our ambition, because that's how we would like to do. Our project in our hotel in Amar Vilas in Agra is where we're weaning away from, it's going to be entirely on gas-based energy resources,
Mhm.
natural gas, which is way less polluting in the environment. So, the governments are encouraging in a very direct way, like in this case, or very indirectly, where they tell you to hire local and increase the broad-based the skills and learning for local citizens and their local traditions to continue.
So, no wonder these properties that you just mentioned are one of the most beautiful, exotic locations in the Indian travel industry. And if they're supporting the local artisans, and that's an amazing feat to do. So last year had been ravaging for the hotel industry. The COVID pandemic confronted the hospitality industry with an unprecedented change. Wanted to know, sir, what were the key strategic changes you took or your group took to ensure that not only you sustain in the crisis, but also thrive in the new norm?
That's right. That's right. I think it's a very good question, very pertinent question, because not just it's very topical, but I think everybody's relooking and saying why this couldn't be done earlier on. Now, any business leader will tell you, any executive will tell you, COVID changed a lot of situation. It was an unprecedented, once in a lifetime, once in a century type of a situation, and people had to respond fairly quickly, including ourselves. We are a high fixed cost business, and we've had to take steps to respond to the needs of the situation. So several factors such as manpower planning, how we look at energy utilization, because these are the two single biggest contributors to the fixed cost of any hotel operation,
Okay.
had to be carefully reviewed. We put in place appropriate policies, whether it was with the use of third-party technologies, external tools, to
Mhm.
ensure that we keep manpower at the optimum level for the level of service and the operation that we would like to run. And
Okay.
and likewise, from an electricity and energy consumption point of view, to be as frugal as sensible as we can be, and that has allowed us to trim a lot of fat, and that has allowed us to continue to operate in a lean manner, which means all around less wastage for everyone. Whether it's planning a menu, the kind of food offering that you do. People have been very sensitive. People have been particular about eating at either in their room or not stepping out to the restaurants. We've just been mindful in adapting our menu and creating even dishes to the extent where people can be sort of explained that there's been least involvement in of any they've been kept very clean and tidy and undertaken. The food processes have been undertaken in optimal conditions. So yes, there've been a lot of steps in the minutia from the three big areas that I mentioned. One is energy consumption, the other is manpower, and then food consumption. And we just hope that these practices will continue within the company, within the group, and in the industry in general, because the expectation of the guest has also changed. So in the long run, it should benefit everyone.
Absolutely. Like these changes are there to stay. And if they prove to be sustainable in the crisis, I'm pretty sure that they will be solid examples for the future as well. For the next question, the Oberoi Group debuted with its entry into the London's Mayfair market by partnering with Kane International, a privately held real estate investment firm. So, in your rich experience, you have yourself led projects of the Oberoi Group enter into new geographies, management contracts, and new ventures, that of the branded residencies and service apartments. So, we wanted to understand, like, for what key factors, or let's say check boxes, like, do you tick when strategizing if these mergers and developments would be sustainable in the future?
Well, I mean, I think, as a business call, when you talk of entry into a market like a London market or another international market, one needs to be cognizant of how the local government in that market is responding to and to reacting to the change and that is needed in the conditions today. So something like London has been absolutely at the forefront of fighting climate change and creating conditions for sustainability, right? I mean, they've implemented congestion charges for vehicles enter into the main city of London for well over, I want to say, 12 or 14 years. They were the pioneers in doing so. Thereafter, they've levied further cess on businesses which are polluting. As a country, they're extremely proud of their heritage. So any planning that needs to happen is intensively scrutinized by the local councils and local regulatory bodies to ensure that they not only adhere to their heritage requirements, but are designed and built in a very energy efficient manner. Energy efficiency in terms of buying and selling properties, so forth, are one of the very important criteria. And equally, as businesses, you're obliged to devote money, you're obliged to devote your time to creating the right environment to ensure sustainability of the resources of that region. So I think a place like London ticks a number of such boxes.
So, coming to like the end of the podcast, although I want to talk much more on the sustainability front, but due to the paucity of time, just a one last question for you. So, how does the future of sustainability look from the lens of the hospitality industry in the future? Let's say 10 years down the line.
I think the future, I would just say that sustainability is not just a work stream we need to do. It is so integral and increasingly becoming integral in the way you conduct a business, because there are these certain industries and sectors that can be quite prone to waste, environmental and otherwise. And I think it's just for us collectively, and if we fail in our duty to do so, our shareholders, I'm sure, will remind us, our guests will remind us, and we are very conscious that we don't do anything. I mentioned the various initiatives about solar energy. We are also in the process of setting up bottling plants within our respective hotels, where we can just bottle and eliminate single-use plastic bottles entirely. Now, we've taken a lot of steps in 2019 towards this initiative. And in a couple of our city hotels, we had eliminated plastic bottles entirely from being served at the hotel, like in Oberoi, New Delhi, and in Bombay. The energy initiatives that I talk of are all pretty irreversible. I mean, ultimately, you set up a solar plant, and we are setting up exclusive plants in Rajasthan, which you've got abundant solar electricity that we can use for our hotels and even supply further. So, the luxury traveler in particular, the segment that we look into and operate into is all about doing the right thing and doing the best and doing quality. And we are blessed that way that, with our brand, that we've been able to hold our head high and say, look, we are taking these initiatives, and it costs more, it has an impact on the P&L, on the bottom line, then the guest understands. So I don't see any of this as reversible. So we do see the level of permanency in these situations, and I'm very, very, very optimistic that going forward, this is only going to improve. We've had cases, as you may have read about, certain organizations that facilitate booking apartments and stay homes in people's houses and overseas, and big companies, and they've had absolutely rundown city centers where people lived, or suburbs where people lived, and they were never inundated with tourism. But suddenly, you take a 50 apartment building which is only for residents, and you've got tourists coming in and out. Now it's not ready to cope with that sort of a rush, and I think those are really endangering those hearts of the cities. So not something like that we would ever end up doing, and we do hope that some of these other companies that are in that business recognize that those are practices which have a serious impact on the cities and the environment, on sustainability, and should reverse it. So from the lens of a hospitality industry, I think sustainability is here. It's part of the DNA, and increasingly so going forward.
Absolutely, sir. And going forward in a permanent way, like I really like when you said that it's a permanent change. And as you said, like the world comes to you, and they bring home examples as well, which we learn from. And it's all
Absolutely,
about doing the right thing as well. And the traveler understands that as well. They are not just these people are aware. These people understand that, and they in fact they appreciate a business more who's setting these examples. And as you said, they come home and give that feedback to you as well.
Very true. Very true.
I'm pretty sure like the students and all our listeners today would have learned a lot from this discussion with Mr. Nayar, understanding the hospitality industry from his particular perspective, coming with more than 2 decades of experience. And it's just like it was an immense value add, not just for me, but like for our listeners as well. It was a pleasure to host you, sir. Although it's virtually and it's a podcast though, we really, really hope that we could call you on campus very soon. Like, I hope the wave subsides, the next wave subsides, and we get you on campus and interview you there in front of our students as well.
Certainly. We'll look forward to that.
And lastly, thank you to all our listeners who tuned in today to listen to us on this road to Senate. As we all know, guys, Senate 2021 is coming on March 7th, where we're seeing industry stalwarts talking from everything sustainability and scaling it from principles to practice. See you there.